Okay, so Baruch Hashem, thank you for those who braved the cold, and it's cold outside now. There's this guy who lives on my block. He's a landlord. He owns a bunch of apartment houses. He never wears a coat. He always says it's so warm. He wasn't wearing a coat today, but he was wearing earmuffs. So I know that if he was willing to admit that, he had to be something. I tell you this many times. I just understood it a little bit more today. That there's this Rav in Alaska keeps calling me to come out for a Shabbos. I said, I don't know. He says, really, you'd be surprised about the Yiddishkeit here in Alaska. For example, he says the tznius on the street is amazing. So, he really wants to come. You really want to give it to that guy that created the world wind chill factor, no? Whoever had to factor that in. I'm trying to think of those stories of the people that broke the ice and went in and came out, and they did this every single day. I guess after a while you kind of get used to it. Not quite sure how, but okay. So, I heard this story from a very chashuv yid. He said, well, down here in this world, we never know where we're going to be, outside in the cold, inside in the warm. Sometimes it's cold inside, warm outside, depending on what the inside is. So this yid says, I know one thing for sure. Wherever my wife is going to be in Gan Eden after 120 years, that is where I am going to be. Wherever my wife is going to be, that's where I'm going to be. Wherever your wife is going to be, that's where you're going to be. How do you know that? He said, my wife is a tzaddikus. She davens, she learns, she cries for others. The whole day she's busy with anything that in terms of chesed and so on. I know what's going to happen after 120 years. She's going to come up there. They're going to invite her into Gan Eden. And then they're going to say to her, what do you want to do here in Gan Eden? Tell me what you want to do. She's going to say, I don't know. And they're going to say, what did you like to do more than anything else on this world when you were down here? She's going to say shopping. So they're going to say, here's the heavenly Visa card, Gan Eden Visa card. You can go and you can, whatever you want, any store you want, go right in and take whatever you want. So I said, how do you know you're going to be together with your wife? He says, I'm going to come up to Shemayim after 120 years, and they're going to read me my rap sheet, and it's going to be big tzuris. And they're going to say, oh, you're going to Gehenna. They're going to say to me, okay, Gehenna, what was the thing that you hated the most down here in this world? I'm going to say shopping. They're going to say, there you go. You see, I'm going to be together with my wife, but we're going to be there for totally different reasons. And they say why the rate of heart attacks is more by men than by women. Because shopping doesn't cause heart attacks, paying for it does. There was this lady that she asked to be buried in Walmart. I said, why do you want to be buried in Walmart? She said, at least this way she knows her daughters will come visit her once a week. Otherwise, she doesn't have much hope in the yard side. So the emes is getting back to this yid who says that he's going to be together with his wife in Gan Eden. If he's going to be together with his wife in Gan Eden, I don't think that it's going to be because of the shopping per se. I think it's going to be more so because of his bittul. And the fact that he can even talk that way. Listen, my wife has a right, I'm just there to help her. That's a bittul. Bittul means, and really we are shopping, as we've mentioned many times, the story that Maratz Chayes writes, that he saw his father in a dream, and his father had a crown, beautiful clothes, all the way down to his feet, except for the fact that he was barefoot. And he said, Father, what's the matter? He says, the clothes that we have up here in Shemayim is the mitzvahs and masim tovim that we do. And even though I gave plenty of tzedakah, the one thing that I never actually did was that I never really walked from house to house and went through the bizyainis of collecting money. So I don't have socks and shoes. So if you would do that for me, he said to his son, you'll be sending your father a pair of shoes. So really what we do down here in this world is we go shopping. The Gabbai of the Chafetz Chaim once came into the Beis Medrash. He said the Chavetz Chaim wants to say something tonight at 12 o'clock. That's how the story goes. Why the Chavetz Chaim wanted to say this at Chatzos? Tzaddikim have their cheshbonos. The Chavetz Chaim came into the Beis Medrash in Radin, and he started L'kei Neshama, and he came to the words L'hachzira, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu takes our Neshama and is going to return it to us. L'hachzira with a mapik hey, it's going to be the Neshama that's going to be returned to us. In other words, whatever shopping we do for our Neshama down here in this world, that's the Neshama that we're going to have after 120 years. So the mitzvahs and the ma'asim tovim that we do, that's our clothes, that's the credit card. And that we are, and we really do go shopping down here in this world. But I think more so is the bittul, the fact that this Yid, this is a tzaddik of a Yid, I don't want to mention his name right now, but the fact that when a person talks that way, my wife has it straight, I'm there to support her. And if a wife says, my husband has it straight, I'm there to support him, then you have shalom bayis. But that's not so easy to do. I'll repeat a story that I said Friday night, for those of you that remember. I was going to yeshiva, so Torah B'das had the Shabbos and Flapish, was Baruch Hashem, very nice Shabbos, so there were a bunch of signs on the front door, and about the listings of wherever everyone was going to be on Shabbos. So it's Friday morning and I'm coming into yeshiva, and I catch from the corner of my eye one of the Rosh Hashivas and the Gid Shur and the Tire Yid. He's on the corner. You know that awkward thing when you're about to enter a building and there's an elder Yid walking, but he's like 50 feet behind you. So here's the problem. They let the door slam in his face. I walk in, that's not covered. Do I hold the door? It's going to take him another 10 minutes to get here, 5 minutes to get here. And meanwhile, he's going to see me holding the door. He's going to start running. So what do? You close. You know this situation, one of the complicated situations in life. So there I was. So you try not to notice the person, or you sneak in, open the door, drop, and you sneak in. So I already opened the door and oh, okay, all right. Don't run, take it easy. I have all the time in the world, especially in this weather. Everyone likes when the cold air comes in. So he sees my predicament. So he yells, he goes, close the door, close the door. He says, I have to read all those signs anyway. How am I supposed to read it when the door is open? I said, why didn't anyone else ever think of saying that? No one else thinks of saying that because, it doesn't pass to read the signs. It's a certain, right? Chush if a person doesn't stop on the street to read the signs. I know they say from one of the Gedolim of Yerushalayim, one of the real big Kanoim, that when they started in Yerushalayim, the tug of war started between the right and the left. So they used to put up signs. They opened the theater in Yerushalayim, in some place, and they put up signs when the movies are going to play. And this real tzaddik of Yerushalayim, the Yid, went by and he looks at the sign. He's writing down. So, you want tickets? Well, what are you doing? He says no. He sits down on the floor with sackcloth and says Tillim. He wants to know exactly when to do it. But for most people, it's kind of diminishing to read a sign. It doesn't pass. We don't read signs on the street. When we get home, you can read the signs. But on the street, it doesn't pass for a chush of a person to stop and read a sign. But you see the guy stuck there with the door. He says, close the door, let me read the sign, go in. It's a certain attitude. It's a certain mahalach of, get my cover. Just do what you have to do. Say between Gan Eden and Gehenim, the Saru Avodah said there's a little door. There's no lock on the door. No lock on the door. So anyone in Gehenim just walks right out into Gan Eden. What's the problem? The problem is the door is very low. You have to bend down. So bend down. Those that didn't bend down on this world, they can't bend down. If you're willing to be mevatel yourself down here, you can bend down and sneak out. If you weren't willing to bow down over here, it doesn't work. You can't get out. You ever wonder why there could be 1,000 signs plastered someplace on a wall, on a big construction sign next to it says post no signs, and they're right next to it, covered up. Then along comes these guys Thursday night, they ride on bicycles and they take out these big things, with the tape in their mouth, zip, 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 zip. Then as soon as they put up a sign, 30 people come to look at it. What's so exciting about a new sign? You have all these other signs. They're there 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Why does everyone come to look at a new sign? Somehow we think that, here comes the new information. Let me be the first to see it. And I think that as Agav, I don't want to get too far off on a tangent on this, but in certain ways, the way we communicate with each other down here in this world, what's happening is part of the reason I think that socially we have the problems. there used to be something called a conversation. That meant two people sat down by a table and they actually looked at each other and they concentrated on what the other person had to say, and there was a give and take. Unfortunately, because we have so many technological advances in terms of how we communicate, so we don't do that anymore. So there's certain things people have derech eretz for, right? Beep, beep, email, text, yes, see who it is. Why do you have to see who it is? You're talking to me. Why do you have to keep looking every 2 seconds at your phone? No. Yeah, go ahead, I'm listening. I know you're listening. Right, so you're really listening. So I'm talking to this guy. He's every 2 seconds. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, yeah. Oh yeah, 1 minute. So I'm talking to someone, so you have to wait a little bit, okay? No, you're not talking to someone, you're answering the phone. So finally I picked up my phone and I called him. He goes, hello? Who's this? It's me. But you're standing right here. Right. But I'm trying to get your attention, and that's the only thing you have derech eretz for. So there's two sadrunim by one of the big Rabbi Schachter, right? I told you that. It was on the radio. He goes, Shimon, yeah, 10-4, yeah. The Hersmach, yeah, I hear you, yeah. You read me? Yeah, I read you. 10-4, yeah, what's the matter? Yeah, get off my foot, please. Oh, sorry. The way we communicate with each other. Just listen to what the other person has to say. You know, of this abundance, they're beautiful, beautiful things. But I've heard there's some kids, he says, my father, I sit down to learn my father, every 2 seconds he checks his phone. He doesn't answer his phone. He's tzaddik. He doesn't answer his phone. The kid doesn't feel that the father's really focusing on him. He doesn't feel that he's concentrating on him. In marriages, people come home by the supper table. I'm listening. In the old days, you used to pick up a newspaper. And, that wasn't as insulting. The guy was buried behind the newspaper. But you're sitting there. You know what it is? It's an escape. Because to talk to somebody means you have to deal with the individual that's in front of you. That requires focus, requires patience, requires a certain amount of bittul to that person. We don't want to be mevatel ourselves. I want to press buttons and I want this guy to disappear. I don't want to have to talk to him. I told my class today, I had a teacher that years ago used to come in, like today's final, a lot of people taking finals and midterms, he would give out the tests and he would open up a big newspaper. Everybody was, I'm talking. At the end he would say, okay, Chaim, Shimon, and Shloimeh, don't bother handing in your papers. Right? He had 2 little holes in the newspaper. That's how he did it. Looked down and saw exactly what was happening. It's a guy. So it was like, come on, you want to stare at me and catch me is one thing. Don't hide behind the newspaper. I actually saw this once. I went to be Mevaka Chaylasam, and there was a lady in the bed next door. And she calls up, and I hear her saying, can you tell me how, whatever her name was, Hannah Rosenberg is doing? What's her status? Yeah, what's her condition? You know when she's going to be released? Tomorrow morning. And she's doing better? Okay, thank you very much. Slams the phone down. She looks at me. She says, by the way, I'm Hannah Rosenberg. But that's the only way I get answers over here. You stop the doctors and nurses. I don't have time now. You call the special number. The way we don't communicate directly. And there's an issue because it lacks bittul. And in the lacking of bittul, it's a certain mesiras nefesh. You're right. Someone knocks on your door and you sit down to talk to him for 2 minutes, or you stop on the street when you're in a rush and you talk to someone for a few minutes. So I remember there was there was a guy. I used to walk in the morning to yeshiva, and there was, remember 3 years ago was a big snowstorm, so people make those little paths in front of the house, and I don't know why people don't realize that. I guess they're done people at Kavschus that we're all the right way, and some of us can't get through those very narrow paths. Also, you should really tell people that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So why would someone make the path like this? So I'm walking on 16th Avenue, and the worst is when you're walking on this narrow path and someone's coming toward you, when you're face to face with him. And it's like, okay, go. No, you go. We can't both go. Where are we supposed to? Somebody has to back up, Can't turn around. Somebody has to step into the snow while the other one passes. So there was this guy, and I would run to yeshiva in the morning, same schedule. He would pass by, and I looked at him and I wasn't sure. And he looked familiar a little bit, but I never said anything. So finally we're on a dead end. We're on a collision course. I'm face to face. I'm like, you, me, you. He tells me, by the way, you don't recognize me? Sure, I recognize you. You're the guy I don't say good morning to for the last 6 weeks. Every time we come, I don't recognize you. He says, you don't remember we used to be in a bungalow colony together? I'm so-and-so. You're so-and-so. Unbelievable. He says, yeah. So what are you doing here? He says, I moved onto your block. Really? When? He says, 6 months ago. Really? I didn't realize. But you saw me every morning. We passed by. Right. But I didn't realize you moved on the block. I just thought you happened to walk by this block every morning for whatever. He says, you see me coming from the grocery with milk. That doesn't mean you live on this block because you're coming to the grocery with milk. So I said, I guess I thought I was going zigzag. It wasn't zigzag. It was like the Rabbi telling me, hello, there's somebody moved on your block. Maybe you speak to him, say hello to him. What's doing? Where you coming from? So sometimes the Rabbi kind of twists us and turns us. We think we're going crooked, but really it's a straight line. Wake up. There's someone around you. You have to talk to him. Somebody once came to the Barditcheva, and the Barditcheva said, I'm giving you a letter, give it to so-and-so. He said, I don't know who so-and-so is. Barditcheva wouldn't want to talk to him. He says, is somebody in your town you don't know who he is? And there's a very fine line between being a yenta and knowing exactly what's cooking in someone else's pot and just taking an interest in who that person is. And that's the union of the Bittul. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, when his wife passed away, so he's walking out of the hospital, he just got the news, and a man stops him and says, Rabbi, I'm making a Shalom Zacha Friday night. He goes, Mazel Tov, Lechtige Yiddish Adayra, Shvi B'Shatayvim Etzlachas. He says, why don't you tell him? Your wife just passed away. He says, why should you know he's going to feel so booshed out if I say that? What does one thing have to do with the other? One should put me together, but is that a covet for your wife? He says, that's what my wife would want me to do. Yeah, I remember once I was by a chuppah, right before a chuppah. And this guy's about to lead his son to the chuppah. His cell phone rings. He goes, what? I am about to bring my son to the chuppah right now. Okay? Oh, so sorry. Yeah. So I went over to him afterwards. I said, come on, give me a break. How many times is that guy trying to call you? He said he's trying to call me the last 2 weeks. Right. So the only time you pick up is when it was 2 minutes before your chuppah, so you can say, now you call me? About, it's not fair. Right? We manipulate people around us. This is, I think Rabbi Yaakov never took the phone off the hook. Is that true? You have Anikel here, Rabbi Yosef? He said, what do I? People want to call me. He never took the phone off the hook. The famous story of Beshalach and Meltzer, Zechet Tzadik Levracha, once went running, literally went running, and he came into his house, he told his rabbits, and look who's here, who it was the local person that went collecting every morning. They made such a do out, they brought out the big beautiful breakfast and everything. What are you doing this? Why are you making such a to-do about this person? So Rabbi Zalman said, I thought he was the brisker of. And I started running toward him. I dropped everything. And I said, quick, get breakfast, get ready, come. All of a sudden I saw just, Chaim Yankel from the corner. So I said, but see, if I want to, I could stop what I'm doing and greet someone. So I should stop because he's Chaim Yankel? I should say, oh, it's just you? I felt I had an achrayus to keep doing what I meant. If in Hashemayim, they were telling me, now, this doesn't mean that we don't have to draw lines. And sometimes you have to cut off, and sometimes you have to tell people, wait, I need a break. But the reason you need a break is because bitula zel kiyuma. Because in order to maintain a relationship, you have to have a break, like everything else. But your purpose in saying, I'm not answering the phone now, is because I need some patience to deal with him in an hour from now properly. That's okay. But when you want to slam the phone down now and say goodbye, that's something else. Somebody once said, on most phones, you press 7 to save, you press 9 to save, and 7 to delete, right? So he said, the guy keeps calling, you're like, get rid of him. Instead of being mispal, tell this guy to stop bugging me. Then say, Rabbeinu Shalom, let me help him solve his problems. Let me help him delete his problems. Bitula Zek Yuma. Story in the book People Speak, Volume 3, page 103. Young man grows up with polio. He has almost no feelings from underneath his knees. His knees buckle underneath him. He has braces. And he moves to Eretz Yisrael. He wants to start a new life. He gets a job in a factory. He works with his hands so that the handicap is not an impediment to him. He has no friends. He has nobody. And he works his way with crutches back and forth. And this boss comes in. His boss is a Tyra Yid. Sits down next to him. He says, why don't you get married? He says, well, you're making fun of me. No, why can you think you can get married? And he says to the boss, listen, thanks for giving me something to dream about. And one day the boss comes by and says, listen, I have a shidduch for you.
Who? He says, there's a girl, same problem you have. She works for a friend of mine who also has a factory. He said, it took a lot of convincing, but we met, and as soon as we met, we knew we were for each other. But I said to my boss, I don't have a red cent to my name. How am I going to start? I have no family here. I'm in Eretz Yisrael. It's still a strange land for me, even though Eretz Yisrael is not strange to us. Where do I go? What do I do with this? The boss said, you are getting engaged tonight. And the two bosses got together. He said, for the next week, or till your chasana, I'm not just your boss, I'm your father. And I'd like you to meet her boss, and he's not your boss, he's your father-in-law. Whatever you think of a father-in-law, think of him. Who the shviger is, we'll leave for a different time. He says they got together, and they mamish married them off. He said they sat down, they negotiated the chasana, like the chatanim negotiated the chasana. They made a beautiful wedding. All the people in the factory came. The whole family of it came. They said, this is my father, this is my mother. And they set them up in a very nice neighborhood in a beautiful apartment. And they had a baby boy, and when he came to the bris, he says people were crying. He made the lachnisa b'brisa shel Avraham Avinu, and he hugged his boss, and he said, I never would have believed I would be zeicha to this. So he says, you can imagine what it was like. He had to come down from the second floor to the first floor. They're both on crutches to bring the baby to the car. But he somehow managed to do it. They wound up buying an old car. Sometimes even, he said, they would hold the crutch and put the baby on the crutch. They had different original ways how they got down the stairs. Then they had a daughter, and one day the daughter had fever. She had 104, and the fever was rising. They decided in the middle of the night, they called the doctor. The doctor says, come to the emergency room. So they're in a rush to get to the emergency room. It's a cold night, and they know it takes them a half hour to get both babies down the stairs. So he did something which he never did before. He knocked on the neighbor, and they didn't have much connection to this neighbor. He didn't have much shaykhs to the neighbor. It seemed the neighbors weren't so happy. This couple was in the building. They even overheard someone say it's going to bring down the property value. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, she says, he knocks on the door. The lady says, what? He says, listen, I never asked you for help, but we have to get to the emergency room. Can you please help me with bringing down one of the babies to the car? So she says, people like you should never have children, and slams the door quiet. He's like reeling from the insult, but he manages to get the babies down. It takes them a half hour, and they go to the emergency room, and baby's taken care of, and he's determined. He tells his wife, we're not going to let this get us down. Life is going to go on. A couple of weeks later, he comes home at night. There's an unbelievable commotion. This next door neighbor that made this comment, because she was upset that she was woken up 2 o'clock in the morning, on the front porch they have a baby, or a toddler, and the toddler is standing on the railing of the porch, and people are screaming, get down, get down, get down, you're going to fall, and they can't get to it. And then 2 other kids come out and they're screaming, Mommy, Tati, and obviously the Mommy and Tati aren't home. They went out for the evening and decided the kids are sleeping and things are okay. So they call the police, they call the fire department, the Chaverim, Shamrim, whatever, and he says from his porch, so he said that because he's in his therapy, he was trained to use his hands, very powerful muscles because he doesn't have his feet. So he literally put his crutches between the 2 guardrails and climbed over the crutch, swung himself over onto the neighbor's porch and put the 2 babies down. And he went into the apartment, tried to come out. He saw they locked the door from the inside. There was a double lock both ways. So they called the fire department who came to crack the door down. Meanwhile, the parents came down from their night out and they said, what's the big commotion? So the first big commotion is, the police said, you're under arrest. We're leaving your kids alone. And there was a whole garachka. So he felt like, he said, they never thanked him for saving the babies. But it kind of like, it says, Kala Paisel b'mu my Paisel. She said people like you don't have a right to have children, and what was her attitude toward children. So the MS is that we connect with each other. She could have avoided this by saying, the Rebbeinu Shem sent me these 2 neighbors that need help. This is my Nisayan. Because she looked down at them, what she was really doing this, she was looking down at herself. Now, the $1 million question. Avi Cheder Yingel asks this question. Why did Dasan and Aviram survive the Shloishes Yimei Afel? Right? Such troublemakers. 4/5 of Klal Yisrael died during Makas Choshech. Why did Dasan and Aviram make it? They were all worse than Dasan and Aviram. Not only that, the Yamsuf split for them. So there's a famous word from Chaim Shmulevitz. He says, wait, there was a certain gather. The people that died during the Shloishes Yimei Afel were those who didn't believe in Geula. So it could be Dasan and Aviram believed in the Geula. They just had their own agenda. But the Chassam Sofer says a different word. The Chassam Sofer says, look, here comes Moshe Rabbeinu. He is Paro's favorite pet child. You know, if he stays out of this problem with the Jews, he doesn't get involved, he can be an heir to the throne, he's living in riches. He's Meiser Nefesh himself. He goes in there, and he breaks up, and first he kills the Mitzri, then he breaks up, tries to break up the fight between Dasan and Aviram, and what do they say to him? Who are you? Right? We're going to go to Paro and tell him you killed the Mitzri. Hello? He just risked his life to save your life. Who are you? So basically what Dasan and Aviram said to Moshe Rabbeinu was similar to what this lady said to that person. So the Rebbeinu Shalom said, Dasan and Aviram have to live to see Kriyas Yamsuf. They have to live to see Matan Torah. They're the ones who made fun of Moshe Rabbeinu. They're the ones who threatened to kill him. They're going to have to live to see his greatness. That's what the Chassam Sofer says. They're going to have to be put through it. They're going to have to come to terms with what they did. So in other words, how we interact with people is a puzzle. The Rebbeinu Shalom puts us there, and the puzzle has to fit. And we make mistakes. We say things we ought not to say sometimes. So we have to correct the mistakes. But ultimately, Rav Shimon Shkop in the Sefer Shar Yosher explains it this way. He says, every person has an interpretation of what the word ani means. What does it mean, me? What does I mean? Right? I've said this many times. The guy says, I don't like you. Why don't you like me? Because every word you say is me, I, me, 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 me. The guy says, me? Right? Why do you accuse me of that? Everyone thinks of me. Chavis Levavit says, when a baby starts growing up, what does the baby know? The baby just knows the nipple. He doesn't even know his mother, just knows the nipple. Later he begins to understand there's a mother. Later he begins to understand there's a father. Later he begins to understand there's money. Later he begins to understand, right, there's a world. Until he gets to the Bari Olam. If he gets to the Bari Olam, depending on his course. So the ani, the I as a child is always, I is just I. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I need a diaper. I'm the I. That's all I am. That's who I am. I am I. Now, as you get older, if your chinuch is proper, the circle around the I gets bigger and bigger. The I includes my mother, includes my father. The I includes my family. The I includes my friends. The greater the person, the greater the interpretation of the word ani. The greater the interpretation, right? The famous story of Aryeh Levine went to a doctor with his wife, and he said to the doctor, our foot hurts us. Guess which one, right? Well, that's it. We're one unit. We're one people. When a person does not relate properly with others, what happens is the circle around the ani gets tighter and tighter. This ani has to be expandable in order for it to be a quality of life. It doesn't work any other way. Somebody once came to Rabbi Baruch Ber, or Rabbi Baruch Ber said a mush. I don't know exactly what it was, but he said this point. His point was, somebody was asking about a shidduch for a bacher. And this is what we knew about the two bacherim. One bacher was walking on a bridge, and he saw a baby fell out of a carriage, and he jumped into the water and saved the baby. Very nice. You want your daughter to be married to Superman? Very gewaldic. That's all you know about him? There's not a chesaron that he did that, but is that all you know about him? Doesn't really tell you anything about it. There was another bacher that learned in yeshiva, but there was an old almana that lived downstairs, and every day in Astarim, he always went to check if she needs anything and brought her food, and he did this day in, day out. So Rabbi Baruch Ber said, given if those are the only two pieces of information, it doesn't take anything away from the first one, but what you hear about the second one is a lot more. Why is it a lot more, what you hear about the second one? Because he's not, this is ani, his circle includes the lady. Anyone that sees a baby drowning and doesn't reach out to the baby is not normal. But this person is telling you that his ani, his concept of I, is growing and growing and growing. So Rabbi Baruch Ber is on a train, they're running away in the war, and there's a lady with a daughter that's thrown off the train because there was something wrong with their tickets. They're standing with the suitcases, and this is war. And he tells his wife, we can't leave her alone, let's get off the train. It's war! But I can't leave her alone. Tell me, if this was my daughter, would I leave her alone? If we're the only Jews over here, the Rabbi should put me here. His ani was bigger, and therefore he gets off. His life is different. Rabbi Baruch Ber he had a hat. Someone told me the story here. I'm trying to remember who, but it's a Geshmaka story. Baruch Ber his hat was always squashed, if you notice in all the pictures. He had a cheshbon. They said when he got a brand new hat, he used to always somehow accidentally sit on it. They said why? Because when he would come in, they said when you wear a brand new hat and you come into shul, usually you're like, this is my hat. So like he felt that was the ikuv to his davening. They said that he once came and Reb Chaim Moser said to him, The Baruch Ber for Azah Sif was a big Sif. He Shabbos to hit. You should have put on your Shabbos hat. So he answered that this is my Shabbos to hat. So they said that he was once in Williamsburg, and he was about to give, and he was giving a shiur, and his hat was on the table. And as he was giving the shiur, and he was for entering the Rambam, he said, "So this is Pshat." Boom. And it's right before the Chassan. There was a Chassan the next night. So Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Herman was there, and they picked up the hat, which now had ventilation, cross ventilation. So he said that he is, you know what? He said, I'll buy you a new hat tomorrow for the Chassan. So the Chassan was sitting there. So the Chassan went, he took the old hat, and he had it fixed, and he wore it for the chuppah. Said, I want the schus of wearing this hat for the chuppah. He had, right, some Chassan, when he had seichel. He knew who he was. Rabbi Baruch Ber had to give a shiur in Telz. It was a Havman, it should be Rosh Hashiva in Telz. So he gave his shiur. So he was looking for which shiur to give. So he said, what took him so long to find the shiur? He wanted an average shiur. Now, everyone has their shiurim. You have your stories. You know, are always the ones that get a roar of laughter. He wanted an average shiur. Why don't you take your best shiur? He said, because if they want to take me for Rosh Hashiva, they want to know who I am. They want to know if I can relate to the Talmidim. If I take my best shiur, that doesn't prove anything. I have to take my average shiur. So it took him so long to find an average shiur. You know why? Because he was real. When you're real, you look at life very differently. Your circle is very big. It's not about me. It's about whether I'm going to do my job with the people that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into the circle next to me. I was standing in the airport once, and I watched, they put down that suitcase between the two counters on the scale, and they start with the negotiating. It's all overweight, underweight. You start taking out the apples and the bananas and inside it. So I'm watching this guy, they put the suitcase down, I never saw this before. And he's like, with his foot, he's lifting the suitcase.
Yes,
and people do that, right?
JetBlue is very easy to do.
Yeah?
It's very close to the ground.
Oh, okay. I was wondering whether I had some scales up there, like on stilts, right? So, she says, it's overweight, it's 90 pounds. Oh no, look again. 80 pounds, 70 pounds, 60. What's with this suitcase? On a diet, take it easy. And then someone told me that, there are people that, Rahman al-Islam, they have to gain weight, anorexia and so on. There's a whole thing, before they weigh themselves, they put heavy things into their pocket to look more. Right? The people that do more, the people that do less. We say, somebody once bought me a scale, and I got on, there was a recording that said, 1 at a time, please, 1 at a time, please. Okay. We were running away from reality. What Baruch Ber was saying is, be real. Don't try to be who you're not. Be who you are. Be who you are. Somebody told me when he first was a Rebbe in a certain yeshiva. So the first morning, the cook called him over. First giving him Shalom Aleichem. Says to him, "Excuse me, over here. After breakfast, we pick up the tray, we bring it to the front." So he was a little, So he told the other Rebbeim, "Bring up the tray in front. Cover the Torah. What's going on over here?" So he said there were 3 different reactions. He says when he first started, he said, "I'm going to speak to the Manal about this cook. We're going to teach him one way or another." When it got on a little bit weiter, he said, "Okay, forget the cook. I'll bring my own sandwich for breakfast." The guy on a little bit weiter, he said, "The scrambled eggs smell good. Big deal. Carry the tray to the front." And as the years went on, he said, "This poor guy's working so hard. It's his problem, the trays. What's the pick up the tray, bring it to the front." Our life changes as life goes on. Now, I will tell you, bididi hava uvda, that I was about 12 years old, and Rav Moshe was in the bungalow colony, and I was standing there, and we were standing behind him. We were kids, and I said to a friend of mine, I said, "Moshe, what time is it?" And Rav Moshe showed me his watch. Okay? I don't think he really meant that I was calling him. And the uptight in the Maisa was, he saw that I wanted to know what time it was. I caught his attention by saying his first name, although obviously my intention was not to call Rav Moshe. But he wants to know what time it is. Here, what time it is. It's a different world. Your ani is a different thing. So a man tells me, he travels to Yisrael. Often the people always come to him for packages. Talking about kosher packages, but still, big kosher packages. Just a little package, a little refrigerator. Can you please bring this little, have this baby hippopotamus I want to send along, my brother-in-law, he doesn't like that. He sold like a tuna. Can I send 3 or 4 cases with you? So he's like, I don't have place in my suitcase. No, it's mamish, it's a tiny little thing. Tiny, okay. So can you bring it? You can bring it over, yeah. You going to be home? No. So how should I give it to you? Put it through the mail slot. He said, but it doesn't fit through the mail slot. He says, then it doesn't fit in my suitcase. He says, okay, right? You know, in life, a lot of times, we get angry when things don't fit through the mail slot. Guess what? And the Rabbi says, if it doesn't fit through the mail slot, then don't do it. Then put the tray back. Your cover is too big for you to put the tray back. Drop your cover. Pull your cover down a little. Deflate yourself a little bit. You'll get through. You get through. Said this many times. No tractor trailer. A lot of times in the FDR drive, you're stuck. There's a tractor trailer can't get through. Right? Why? You know, I told you this. You know, they asked the driver. It says, "What'd you do? Why you got stuck by the overpass?" He says, "It says clearance 7 feet. On your truck, there's a sign that says 8 feet. Why did you go?" He says he looked from side to side. He saw there were no cops. He thought he can get away with it. Okay. Yeah. So what do they do when the truck is stuck under the overpass? What do they do? They deflate the tires. You know, you deflate your cover a little bit, and you can have breakfast. You can put the tray back. Big deal. Stop thinking about your own covet. Think about your family as a unit. Think about the shalom. Stop. She said this, he said that. Who cares? If you inflate your balloon, then it becomes super sensitive to whatever everyone says to you. And the more sensitive you become, the more you diminish yourself. Deflate yourself a little bit. You fit through. And you get to that little door that's between Gehenna and Gan Eden. The Chedush Yerim used to go up to a shir when he was young, to a certain Ilui in a Polish, real unbelievable genius. So they said about this Maggid Shir that once there was a page ripped in his Gemara. So when he turns the page is ripped. He had no problem. He made a whole pilpul and he connected Daf Vav to Daf Ches. The Gemara, the Rashi, the Tosfos, as if in bat an eyelash. It all stimmed. Everyone, ooh, wow, the Chedush Yerim never went back to him. They said, why? He's such a genius. He said, but it's not emes. But he knows there was a daf in between. So because you can say a whole Torah to connect it, but I'm not looking for kinsin. I'm not looking for magicians. I'm looking for emes. I want the emes. Rav Shmuel Aslanim, he once went to the Chartkever Rebbe. He was the Rebbe, he was a Slanim Rebbe. You went to the Chartkever Rebbe. So somebody once met him. A Rebbe is coming to a Rebbe. He says, did you bring your Gabbai with you? He says, so the Slanim Rebbe said, did I bring my Gabbai? He said, I left the Rebbe at home. Never mind that I brought the Gabbai with me. You know, there are times you leave the Rebbe at home, and life gets along. So says the Chedush Yerim. So Klal Yisrael, right, went into the Yam Suf, and there were 12 different paths. And the Gemara says they went around in a semicircle, whatever it was. Every Shevet had its own path, 2 big walls in between. They were able to look through and they saw the other Shevet. Why couldn't Kadosh Baruch Hu make one, 10-lane highway? 12-lane highway. Why did it have to be 12 different paths? Because the Torah says right now, before Yam Suf, it was, okay, you're going to be a Klal Yisrael. You're each going to belong to a different Shevet. Here, this is your brother-in-law, this is your family, this is your wife, this is your husband, these are your kids. Oh, no, I don't want, no. No, I'm not going. I'm not going. If that's my roommate, I'm not going. That's my chavrus, I'm not going. That person will be in my class, I'm not going to this yeshiva. Okay, no problem. He turns around, the Mitzrayim are running with their spirits. I'm coming. He says, Kriyas Yamsuf was, hey, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave you this, go with it. This is your life. You want to destroy your life by not going it? And maybe that's why the Yamsuf had to split separately for Dasan and Avira. Because this pchina that, hey, your wife, your husband, your children, that take it. Don't stop. You're being insulted and stop because it isn't stop. It's not the way you imagined. Who says you were supposed to imagine? You imagined the right things. This is the reality. It's what a Kadosh Baruch will give you. Take it and go with it. That's Shabbos Shira. So the Gemara says in Masechtas Tainis, Rav Nachman and Rav Yitzchak are sitting by a Suda. And Rav Nachman says, no, tell me a halacha. So Rav Yitzchak says, I'll tell you halacha. Ein Mesicha Mesuda, you don't talk in the middle of the Suda. That's halacha. Shem Yagdim Kana Leveshit, because, your trachea and esophagus, let's pick easy words. My Rebbe used to say, your windpipe will get, opened by your food pipe. There's a little thing that goes on top, and then if you eat, Yavla de Sakon. Now you understand how so really, what did he do here? He really answered him. He said, tell me a halacha. He wanted to tell him a halacha. Because he asked him for a halacha. But on the other hand, you don't talk in the middle of eating. So he told him the halacha that you don't talk in the middle of eating. He could have said, no! Didn't say that. Didn't do it that way. Reb Chaim once said, if you want to see the pinta leverim in a person, you want to see the worm in a person, see the smile on his face when he corrects the balkair. You'll see the pinta leverim in a person. Reb Chaim says he once witnessed this, that there was a man who came in, and he said, can I daven for the Amid? They said, on the Rosh Hashanah is in the year. But he's not here. Okay, so he walks over to the Amid, he starts davening, he's up to Baruch Shamar, Rosh Hashanah walks in, he is, wow, dare you! Out. He says, I'm sorry, they told me out. Anyway, he's like, every once in a while, it turns around, gives him a glaring stare. How dare him stand by the Amid? Finally, comes to laning. There was no other Baal Kaira except the guest. So he comes there, and the Rosh Hakol is not happy, and he made some kind of mistake or perceived mistake, and whatever it was, the Rosh Hakol, whatever he said, mapike, he mixed, he said law instead of law, and you hear the Rosh Hakol yells, no, law! He says, if somebody would have walked in, he said, wow, this Rosh Hakol, see how makbid he is in every word. It's nekeya b'nafshoy to hear the words, anechtig etog, it has nothing to do with the Torah, it has nothing to do with the Rabbi, it's his own personal covet. That's what it is. That's all it is. He could have answered, no. I'll tell you a halacha. Here's a very good halacha. We're going on weiter. They finish eating, he tells them a different halacha. What was the other halacha he told them? Says the Gemara, Yaakov Avinu lo yimes. Yaakov didn't die. Yaakov didn't die. He was eulogized. He was embalmed. He was buried. It was all for naught. He didn't die. He said, listen, says Rav Yitzchak to Rav Nachman, Mikra ni dairesh, al tira avdi Yaakov, Ne'um Hashem, says Hashem, the pasuk goes on to say later, Kinei Mashiach, I'm going to help you, I'm going to save you, Meirachak, Vezeracha, Me'eretz, you're going to return, Makashu Lazaroi, Mazari B'chayim, Mafu B'chayim. You're also, the Yaakov didn't die. Okay, Yaakov didn't die, you say so. Rav Nachman says to Rav Yitzchak, give me a bracha. So he tells him, Ashal, to a person that's walking in a midbar, and he's hungry and tired and thirsty. And he comes to a tree, and the tree has such sweet peiros, and the tree has such a beautiful shade. And there's water running next to the tree. So he turns to the tree and says, tree, what can I bench you with? He says, right? This is Gemara was before the song, by the way. He says, I'm going to tell you that your pears are sweet. Your pears are sweet. Should I tell you that your shade is beautiful? Your shade is beautiful. That you need water going through you. So my bracha is all the little saplings. That's the right word. The little what's the word? The little young trees that are going to be planted should be just like you. So Reb Chaim Kreisberg said he was once on a plane. And he was sitting between Rav Leib Guritz and Rav Elya Lapyan. And they asked, why is it there are so many Bachrim, they start out such geschmack of Bachrim, they turn 18 and all the air gets deflated and they don't have the cheshik that he had. So Rav Chaim Kreisworth asked permission if he can answer. He says, what does it mean that, so the Gemara continues that he turned to Rav Nachman, he said, what bracha should I give you? Should give you a bracha for Torah, you have Torah. Should give you a bracha for Ashiras, you have Ashiras. Should give you a bracha for children, you have children. And your children should be like you. So he asked, what does that mean you have Torah? How could a person have Torah? I remember by not this Siyam Hashas, the one before, there was a sign. The sign was promoting some other thing they were learning. I don't know, Kisah Shechanach Yomi, whatever it was, Kala Kavod. But the way they presented it, was, I don't know what's Kisah Shechanach. It was one of those other limudim. It says, now that you finish Shas, we have a great new program for you. Now that I finished Shas, you think because you learned that for Yomi, you know Shas? Well, the Shagasarya he said he had to learn Shas Bopeh because when he was in Golis, there was only one Shas in town. It was owned by an old lady who yashined it. And she gave him a Gemara. If he asked for the Yevamah's Gemara a second time, she said, you read the book already. We need it again for. So you have to read it again. Right? Rabbi Kiveg is in a town, and he has to stay overnight by this Darf Yid. And he says, any Svarim here? No Svarim overnight. He goes upstairs, he looks around, he comes out with an old Rashba, that Yerusha, the only sefer in no Chumash, no Gemara, no Siddur, just a Rashba. That he has from... So Rabbi Kiveg jumps for joy. He opens the Rashba, he turns a few pages, it's missing a page. Takes out a pen and paper and he fills in the word for word, the Rashba. So the Ksav Sofer says, what's the Chiddush in the story? It's his grandfather, Rabbi Kiveg. So the Chiddush is that Rabbi Kiveg, he knew the Rashba so well that that he could rewrite the missing page. So why was he so excited that he had a Rashba? He learned this already. Because it's a brand new thing. Every time he sees a Rashba, it's a brand new thing. So I'm going to ask you a different kasha. What did Rabbi Kiveg need a Rashba for? All he needed was a pen and paper, and he could write anything he wanted, right? Just presto, yeah. Didn't need that computer program. He was the Lahavdal Alpayim of Dallas, but that's it. Whatever he needed, he could just write it and learn it. So I maybe in addition to these other inyanim, Rabbi Kiveg wanted to give a different message over here. And his message was, there's no svarim. You're a yid that's living in a house and there's not a sefer in this house. And he wanted to show him, what do I have with Svarim? What do you look? And he comes down with a Rajba. You had a great grandfather that had a Rajba. You know what that means? And he shows him what it means. Your life will light up. If you're learning, you felt an achrayus to this person. So we mentioned last time that the Chavetz Chaim said that the Eitz Hadas is in the middle. Why was it B'soy Chagan? Because we each have an Eitz Hadas, and there's a circle. You can't go too far from the circle. Eventually you have to come back. And if there's a neighbor next door to us that we have to interact with, if there's a child that we have to interact with, if at work we have to interact with someone, and if it's the members of our family, whether it's difficult or we think it's difficult, or we may be the difficult one that we have to interact with, we try to run away. The Chavetz Chaim says you can't run away. You're in a circle. You can only go so far. Your Eitz HaChaim is to connect. There was a Yid, his name was Rav Yitzchak Isaac Chaver. He was the Rav of Volkovisk. And Nebuch, they had the Kantoristin, they grabbed away little kids that were being sent off. It was a vicious decree from the Tsar. They were sent off to some remote part in Russia, and they were going to be lost from their families forever, 30, 40 years. And you weren't allowed to talk to the children once they were grabbed. So the Rav went out and he made believe like he's drunk. And the night watchman went over to him. They said, "Where's your pass? You have to have identification." He goes, "Identification? What's that?" They said, "You're not drunk. You're a ganef. You're looking to trick. Look what's doing." So they threw him into the prison together with the kids. He was together with the kids there the entire night. He was mechazik them the whole time. And he said, "I'm going to tell you something. In the morning, they're going to come and they're going to realize I was the Rav and I fooled them. And they're going to give me makas. I know that. And I want to tell you, every single one of these makas was worth it that I can be with you this night and give you chizik to stay with it." And the doctor wanted them to see how he was being meiser nefesh himself with them, to give them the chizik. So the Rebbe Hashem is not asking us to do this, but at least when we're in the proximity of someone else, do we understand that the achrayus? But that person is such a difficult person, yet that's your nesayid, to deal with it. Let's say a bunch of psychiatrists got together, and one of them got up and said, "It's not fair, we also need psychiatrists sometimes, so we can't. So between ourselves, let's treat each other, okay?" So one guy got up and says, "I'm going to, share my confidence. I'm a compulsive shopper, and I work up such a tremendous credit card bill. Sometimes I overbill my patients, and they're talking to him how to solve his problem." Another guy gets up and says he has a drug problem. Another guy gets up and says he has a drinking problem. And each one is saying, another guy says he has, fears, and he's really a shtickle bipolar. The other guy says he has anxiety attacks. And the last guy says, "I'm not saying what my problem is." He says, "Come on, tell us." "No, I'd rather not." "You must tell us I'd rather not. It's not good for you. I should tell you my problem." "We all did it. You tell us your problem." He gets up. He says, "My problem is I can't keep a secret," he says. They went, "Oh, you weiß, right?" Okay, the story I told you many times about this psychiatrist that went to a party, he drank a little bit, and he got a call that he has a patient is about to commit suicide in an emergency session. Here he's drunk, They catch him treating a patient when he's drunk, he's finished, he could be arrested. So his friends tell him, "Listen, go, but don't say a word, because don't prescribe any medication, just listen." So he goes and he's like, the guy's talking out his whole life and he wants to commit suicide and so on, and he's just like, When they finish, he goes over to me, he goes, "Doc, this was the best session we ever had." People need you to listen. Stop and listen. Sir Chaim Kreisberg said Pshat is like this. When you're young, you have dreams. You want to do the whole Torah. I'm going to learn the whole Torah. And we have a cheshire. We could be up nights and up a whole Thursday night to learn. And dreams change over the course of time. We have this dream that we're going to be the next Chazaynish. Somebody told me about a Bacher he was working with. The guy said he was learning, all of a sudden he stopped. He said, "What happened?" He said he heard that the Chazaynish or Reb Chaim Meiser finished Shas 6 times by the time he's 17. When he heard that story, he said, "Forget it. I'm already 17. I didn't do it." There was a sefer out there. The sefer was, this was the title of the sefer, I kid you not, "How to Become Rebbe Yoshev." So I showed it to someone. I said, "I wonder if Rebbe Yoshev had this sefer." He said, "Yeah, Rebbe Yoshev had a different sefer." He said, "What sefer did Rebbe Yoshev use?" It was called Talmud Bavli. That's the one he used. You know what I mean? We don't set out to become the superstar. We have dreams. We all have dreams, and it's good to have dreams. That's till you're 18, till you're 19. Dreams about who we're going to marry, dreams about the life we're going to have. And between that tremendous cheshik and between the actual life, there's a cutoff point. And the Rebbe Hashem says, "I gave you the dreams, now you got to go on your own." It's not going to be exactly the way your dreams are. So he said, Pshat is that the Malach, he said, the two Amiram said to each other, "You already have Torah. You had your dreams. You had your riches. But life is not going to stay that dream. I give you a bracha that your children, I give you a bracha that people you have to deal with in your real life should be like you, should be where you are now at the moment of your dream. That means you have to be able to survive the ups and the downs. He says to the tree, you're the perfect dream. But dreams don't stay forever. If the people that you're going to plant around you, you're going to be able to work with them, to lift them to your level, then you have a bracha. Now the whole Parshas Beshalach is full of amazing stories. The man, the Kriyas Yamsev, Nachshon ben Aminadab, my father used to share this with me. It's also full of a lot of misdowns. It's full of, what? You took us out of Mitzrayim to bury us? You think there's a shortage of cemeteries in Mitzrayim? There's no food. There's no water. There's dreams. There's also the drop in between the dream before you go on to the next stage. And the Morva Shamish says this is the story of life. Yes, Parshas Beshalach is the story of Kriyas Yamsef, it's the story of the Mon, it's the story of the Bershel Miriam. It's also the story of the gaps that are in between, that you have to ride through. The Kana is the Torah, limited Torah. The Veish says we have to stop and chew things over. He said, Ein Masichin Besuda. There are times it doesn't go straight. You can't keep learning. There things aren't going the way you want. You have to chew it over, swallow it, and gegangen weiter. You're so sweet, you're so shady, your water is refreshing, but it won't always be this way. You have to continue it. I have to give you the koyach that you continue it, that netiyas, and that's the koyach of Chamishas B'Shvat. So you walk outside right now. Someone told me a story today. You have to bring an ice cream to the Bronx. They kept it in the sunroof of his car to make sure that it doesn't freeze. Okay? Which is a problem when you're pulled over because people want to buy ice creams from you if you want to do that. So it's freezing outside, right? And today's Chamishas B'Shvat. Rosh Hashanah for the trees. What trees? So the answer is, in the coldest part of the winter is the birth of the next tree. And the emissaries of Bnei Yissaschar says like this, that Tevis belongs to Esav. Half of Shvat belongs to Esav. Chamishasa B'Shvat is a turning point. From Chamishasa B'Shvat till Shavuos, the sons of Rav said, every 2 weeks has a Yom Tov. There's Chamishasa B'Shvat, Rosh Chodesh Adar, Purim, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Pesach, right? Pesach Sheni, like Ba'omer Shavuos. From now to Kabbalas HaTorah, up, down, up, down, up, down. We keep, it's up and a down. It also says, Arbaim Yoim Koidem Yitziras of Lad, 40 days before the baby is created, Machrizin Bas Ploini Leploini. They call out that the daughter of so-and-so should marry so-and-so. According to the Mandamar of the Nisa Nivra Oilam, so Chamish Asar B'Shvat is 40 days Koidem Yitziras of Lad. So in a way, your Zivik is now being created. At this moment that you walk outside and you see nothing, you see frozen ground, and it's cold, and you have a hard time getting your car started, unless you have a car like mine. There's no difference starting it now, it's starting it any other time of year. You always have a hard time getting it started, so really the cold doesn't affect. But in this coldest time of the year, this is when the sraf is oila bi'ilanis. Kadosh Baruch Hu is planting for the future. In the most difficult, frightening times, I am planting for the future. And this is the bracha to the tree. Don't live in this dream that it will always be sweet, that your payers and your shade and your water will be there. I want during the dark times, you're going to say, I am planting for the future. I have the koyach, that's the greatest bracha that is shayach. Because the dreams are good to start things off, but they don't last forever. You know, Remendel, everyone knows this Tuesday. What did everyone do this Tuesday? The most famous segula in Klal Yisrael. You say the Parsha of Man, Shnai Mikra V'Echad Dargim, because it is a segula for Parnasa. And we're very into segulas for Parnasa, of course, totally L'Shem Shemayim. Rameir Lefam said, if you look into all the tefillos of Klal Yisrael, the real heart-rendering tefillos, 99.99% is for what? For money. But if you look into the money, what does he want the money for? To pay schar limit, to marry off his children. If you look even to the money, it's Yirah Shemayim. So the Mendel of Rimanov, he dashed into the Parsha of Man every Shabbos, it's 25 years. Always dashing about the Parsha of Man. He was considered in his time the Mamshech of Parnasa. When he said the Shira, he was so into the Shira, he used to lift his back. The Shabbos Shira was his Inyan. The story goes like this, and we'll conclude with this story. His father was an Erlich Yid, and he had a little kreitzma. Once the pirates came to him, he said, listen, I got to leave the country within 24 hours. Come up with 50,000 ruble, you have all my plantations, all my factories, all my villas, all my houses. Him and his wife, they went crazy. They sold their house, they sold everything, they borrowed money. And he's running to the pirates, and all of a sudden he hears terrific screams, and a man just passed away, and he runs to the house. There's an almana there with 6 children crying her heart out. He says, as it is, I was starving to death. Now for sure I'm going to starve to death. He doesn't think twice. He looks at his wife. They both give themselves a silent nod. He takes the entire money, gives it to her. She says, what? You can't be serious? I'm serious. So in Shemayim, there's a big to-do, there's a big tumult. What's going to be here with this person? Boom, like this is like too much for us to handle. So the Eliyahu Navi says, now we got to test him one more time to see, maybe he just caught off guard for the minute. So he comes back, he doesn't have the money for the pirates, doesn't have his house. They start wandering from place to place, they have no place to live even. And a man comes over to me and says, listen, I saw what you did, 50,000 rubles, sell me the mitzvah. No way. 50,000 rubles, sell me half the mitzvah. No way. 50,000 rubles, sell me 1% of the mitzvah. He says, no way. Forget it. I gave it. We made this deal. Me and my wife, we didn't even have to talk. We looked at each other. We knew we were going to do this. Kadosh Baruch Hu put this almana in my path between me and the pirates. We're in for it. So he says, okay, listen, I'm Eliyahu Navi. You have a choice. My choice is you can be rich forever after, or, what's the or? He says the or is you're going to have a kid that's going to be mamshech parnasa for Klal Yisrael. But you are going to have to stay in Gullus the rest of your life. You're going to wander from place to place without a penny. For the second time in as many weeks, he looks at his wife, and they both nod to each other. And he picks the second one. He says, for me to be rich, how long does a person live? It's gone. You're saying I'm going to have a tzaddik that's going to be mamshech parnasa for Klal Yisrael. That goes forever. And that's the mon. And that's Parshas Beshalach. So, the next time we wonder about where we're going to be, Liyasid Lavai, the next time we wonder about that little door, are we ready to bow down, understand that the skula of Parsha Shira is to say, put your dreams on hold, and go into the world of reality. And the world of reality is the tefillah that all the tiyos should be just like you.
Amen.